So guys, welcome our channel. What if Naruto was became Pain God in DxD World movie? I remember all of it, his blonde flowing hair, his face set in a grim stony look as he looks down at me like I am nothing but a cockroach scurrying around his shit. The god mustn't have known who I was then, but a part of me knew that he knows very well who I am. He stripped me of most my abilities, he didn't even give me my original body back. This is his way of punishing me for my sins against humanity. Nagato. I hate kneeling to anyone even if the bastard was a god. I thought helping Naruto would bring some good out of me. Admittedly I am more carefree, but truth is a tiger can't change his stripes. I am the leader of the Akatsuki. I have taken hundreds of lives and will take hundreds of more. You are sentenced to an eternity in hell. I've expected that there wasn't other place for a man like me to go. This is my fate, just like pain is stitched into my soul. Unfortunately I will not simply accept my punishment. A false god should give an order to me. I am the one and true authority around here. I raised my head so the god can get a good look at my eyes. The unsettling look of the ripples that expanded from the pupil. The eyes of the sixth sage glowed with power. The one thing he couldn't fully steal from me. He may have taken the other path abilities, but he couldn't take the diva path, or should I say my abilities now. The god continues to list off my crimes of against humanity, and I used that time to look around. The large hall was dimly lit and there was only one chair. The throne the false god was seated on, and against the walls it was dozens of doors. Where they led to I don't know. I averted my eyes back to the door and I stood feeling a warm energy surrounding me. The sensation started to burn slowly before the heat picked up, scorching me. I opened my mouth to shout out in pain, only for the energy to jump down my throat and into my body. I fell to my knees yet again, breathing heavily while the bastard kept his cold stare upon me. I felt a bit stronger, but not much. But some strength was more than enough right now. I gather all my energy, no longer even should if it's called chakra anymore. I've felt pain time after time. I've changed the world for the better. I brought the elemental nations to its knees. I am pain and I will not be treated like a peasant. Almighty push. I've repelled everything away from me. A large crater cleared the area around me and the dirt covered my escape as I ran. I didn't care where I went. I was tired, hungry and drained. I tore open a door and looked only to see an area of darkness. I took a step back only for a tendril to whip out and grab me. I attempted to kick me off before more tendrils latch onto me. I struggled, but the more I did so the quicker my last remaining energy faded, so I simply jumped into the darkness, not caring what lies beyond it. Nagato could feel as someone gently nudges him, rousing him from his slumber. His eyes open and he shot up, remembering falling into the unknown literally. He turns his head and a woman with white hair and butterscotch eyes were holding a tray of food. She places the tray on the bed beside him. I've found you out cold in front of my house on my way back from running my errands. She smiles softly. Please eat. The former shinobi could feel the woman had no ill intentions towards him. Thank you, he replied graciously and began to eat the food on the tray. Looking at the beautiful woman in his peripheral, she wore a short white and red kimono that did nothing to hide her large bust, and he looks away feeling a tad bit like his former sensei. After a minute of silence he placed down the tray. Where am I? He asks. He looks around and could tell he was inside a small cottage. You're in the underworld, a mile from the city to be exact. This is my home. She smiles sadly. I know it isn't much, but you can stay as long as you like. Nagato looks at her with a raised brow. Are you sure? The woman smiles. Yes, I am sure. The ninja smirks. I am Nagato. Kana. I am a Nekosho. I've stayed with Kana for a long time. She were my moon in the night. We became close beyond close through the years until we lovers to be exact, but with all goods things they're bad things. The devil lord in the area was infatuated with my love. Obsessed, even he tried again and again to woo her and she always turned him down. Yet he still tried to take her even when Kana and I had children, Koka first and then our youngest who was still a baby, Chiron. Something told me that they were something horrible on the horizon. I should have listened to my gut instincts that day. Nagato were walking through the city buying groceries when a few low-class devils emerged from the alleyways surrounding him. The people scatter, sensing the oncoming danger, and he was actually gratefully given him more room to work with. The lower-class devils charges him and he smirks. Come, you trash. He stood in place before a black rod of metal came from within his arm. He leaned to the left as a devil closest to him attempts to punch. He continues to dodge even when the three other devils attack him. He continues to dance around the attacks with such grace and fluid movements that the devils were starting to believe he couldn't be touched. He shoves the black chakra rod through a devil's stomach, the force of the impact lifting him off his feet, and he kicks the man once he was in the air into another devil, knock him off his feet. His two comrades came at him and he lashed out, snapping one of the devil's neck until his head was facing behind the man. The third devil charges in, swinging wildly, causing Nagato to chuckle almighty push. The attack slams against the devil, imprinting him into the wall. The last devil finally made it to his feet after pushing the dead devil off him. Damn it. You should NT be this strong, you're not even a devil. The devil begins to back away. Nagato walks slowly after the man, his Rinnegan never leave the man as he stalks closer. The devil backs against the wall. You can't kill me, he shouted while pulling a knife from his jacket. You can't. He shouted, even trying to make himself believe his own words. Nagato spun another rod and let it drags against the floor. The devil begins to laugh. Go ahead. I don't care that why my master is doing your whore right now. Nagato stops in place. This is a distraction, he realizes before turning away and began to run. The devil sighed. That was CL. He couldn't finish as the rod stabbed him through his heart. The last thing the devil saw was Nagato standing still with his palm flat open. He threw it. Nagato raced through the city, hitting his max speed in seconds, kicking up dirt and dust in his wake. Please be all right, he pleaded. Nagato made it to the cottage only to see it was up in flames. He staggered over to see Kana lying in a puddle of her own blood. A white dress kimono she was wearing that day was ripped and shredded. He dropped to his knees, tears falling down his cheeks. His hands shook violently as he reached over and cupped the woman's cheek. Not again. Kana, wake up. He sobs softly, trying to hold in his sorrow, except the pain was too much yet again. Kana, you're not dead. Tell me, where is Kuroka and Chiron? He asks, hoping she will answer, yet she stayed still and lifeless as rock. Dad. Nagato turns around to seeing a group of a couple dozen devils standing around Kuroka and Chiron. He stood, not caring to hide his sorrow right now, as a tall and muscular man held onto his younger daughter Chiron whilst a couple men held onto Kuroka. Let them go. Nagato orders, his voice held a dangerous vibe. So you can kill us? Fuck no, I tell you what, I always knew it was something strange about you. Those eyes give you away. You may be human but you're definitely not mortal. He held up a dagger. Stab yourself with this dagger. He tosses it at Nagato's feet. Do that and it'll release your precious daughters unharmed. Nagato eyes the dagger cautiously before reaching down. Dad, don't. His daughter Kuroka pleaded, but he ignores her and picks up the weapon. If you don't. He let his threat hang in the silence. He impales himself with the dagger and could feel his energy leaving him, and he drops to his knees. He tried to take it out but the dagger didn't budge an inch, holding fast inside him. The devil laughs. Fool, like I would give up such priceless jewels. The devil walks closer. Nagato stares at the man dryly, already figuring he wouldn't let them go. Kuroka. He calls, feeling his energy being sapped. The girl struggles, attempting to run to her dad. She stops struggling, realizing she isn't going anywhere. Yes, Dad? She asks softly. Nagato forms one last smirk. For his daughter's sake, always protect your sister. He raised his hand, pointing at the devils. The devils laugh. What you going to do? Blow us away with air? The devils taunt him. Nagato kept his smirk in place. Yeah, something like that. Almighty push. He used his remaining energy that hasn't been sapped by the dagger and watches the devils, including his daughters, was scattered by his powerful repulsion technique. He really hoped he didn't kill his daughters with that attack, but he needed them separated from that bastard devil so they could escape. Nagato leans up against the wall, his hands and arms bound by thick heavy chains that were connected to the wall. He doesn't know how long he has been in this cell. The dagger sapped every bit of energy he regains so he couldn't break out. After some time, the devil that has capture enters the cell. You're still alive. I knew you wasn't mortal. The devil grinned maliciously. I came to tell you we've recaptured your girls. Ah, the oldest, she was so strong-willed and fiery, well, until we've broken her. She begged for death after we played with her for a bit. And the youngest, he chuckles darkly. It would be too cruel to tell you what happened to her. The devil turns around. I am coming to keep you here forever. And the only thing you'll be able to think about is how I ravage your daughters for taking away what's mine. The devil calms down before laughing again. Nagato shook in anger and fury. I'll have your soul for this, he whispers. The devil stops and looks at the seething man before exiting the cell. I'll have your fucking soul. I promise you this, I will fucking crush all you devils. He shouted at the man, huffing in anger and despair, thinking of his family. History has repeated itself, except losing his parents or friend. He lost something so much more. His spawn, his children, his two daughters. He let his hatred for the devils build up more and more. He wanted bloodshed and need bloodshed. That was the thing that sated the pain. He will crush the man, and only one like him. The devils must be destroyed, and only someone who has felt true pain could do it. Nagato never forgets pain as what made him strong, and this pain was simply unbearable. He let his head hang in defeat. As the door opens, he could hear soft footsteps. His didn't want to lift his head as a man kneel beside him. He could only see black hair from his position. The man place a bundle of black feathers from what's looked to be from wings. I heard about what happened to you, friend. It is tragic indeed. We have the same goal. He whispers into Nagato's ear before his hand grasps the dagger and tugs, pulling it out from Nagato's body. The same goal, to see the devils destroyed, my friend. The man took the dagger with him before leaving the cell. Nagato's lifeless eyes slowly regain their focus as Nagato. I can never have happiness. This world is full of pain. My heart is submerging in it. No longer will I feel pain. He gasped out. His throat felt like it was being scratched with sandpaper. They want pain. Then I shall give them pain. Koka and Chiron, Daddy will make them feel pain for you, even if I have to drown this planet in fire. Nagato lifts his head, feeling his energy return slowly but surely. My wrath shall be felt. Pain raises his arms and tugs the chains, listening as the metal kinks rattle against each other. The chains didn't release their iron grip on him, so he tries again once more and still was not successful. A normal man would sigh in defeat and wait until his death. Fortunately, he was no mere man. He was a god, a powerful foe that should not be reckoned with, and iron chains were nothing but mere rope to his will. The false god may have made him immortal so he could live out his imprisonment in some wretched land, but his plan failed and just made him a bigger threat. He slowly stood up, shaking every so often. His stomach was nothing but a mere donut hole now, looking for anything to devour. His vision swayed from side to side as he tries to focus on the door. He had to thank whoever that man was for releasing him from his prison. He may still be physically weak, but his energy will take care of that. He willed his enormous energy reserves to strengthen and enforce his body. He didn't exactly know where the hell he was, but he really didn't care right now. He also didn't know how to get out of here, but that also wasn't a problem. Hell, just make his own exit. Pain raised both his arms and slowly closes his eyes. Kana, Koka and Chiron, I shall avenge you. He raises his head towards the ceiling. I shall make them feel pain. The ground beneath him shatters, making a small crater. Heavenly subjugation of the omnipresent god. The crater expands as the force destroyed everything in its path. A lower-class devil were walking through the halls of his master estate. His lord demanded him to set the dinner table, so he was on his way to accomplish the task. He stops as rumbling shook the ground beneath his feet. His eyes wide, an earthquake. He asks no one in particular until the ground shook even harder. He turns his head only to see the walls and floor being ripped from its very foundation. What in the name of Satan? He asks before a massive force slams into him and carries him with everything else in its relentless path of destruction. Pain opened his eyes to see that he was standing in a large crater. Remnants of the building was nothing but rubble among dirt and dead bodies. He took a deep breath and looks around, stepping calmly over the dead bodies of the devils that were inside the establishment. He scans the ground and couldn't find the devil that held his ire, but it was okay. All in due time. He let the dirt surrounds him as he teleported in a burst of speed, using the Shunshin technique to get to the area he wanted to see most, the small cottage he and his love once had. The small building no longer was standing and was nothing but charred remains, though on the side of it held a small wooden rod and cross standing from beneath the ground. He walks over to it and read what he could. Beloved mother. He smiles to himself, kneeling. They must have done this before that bastard caught them again. I will revenge you, my girls. If you kill someone, someone else will kill you. This hatred will bind us together. He frowns, remembering that he once told Tsunade that when they encounter each other the second time, those words has never been truer at this very moment. The shinobi stood and began his long trek through the forest, making sure not to leave any footprints in his wake. He continues his journey all the way until he came across a dark, damp cave. He steps inside, releasing his chakra into the ground, and watches torches that was connected to the walls lit with flames, scaring away the darkness. He stops walking once he made it inside the inner sanctum of the cave, where drawers and cabinets filled with clothes and weaponry litter the place. He had built this place sometime after he awoken in this world. Being a rogue shinobi and leader of a terrorist organization tends to make you pretty paranoid, and that follow him even here. Unfortunately, it was right for him to be paranoid, or else he would be shit out of luck. The middle of the sanctum were a large lake. Numerous pathways of water fell from the ceiling and filter in through from the ground. He undresses, pulling his smelly and ragged clothing off his person before diving into the water. Being held prisoner were definitely not fun or an experience that he would ever like to live again. He let the grime and dirt wash from his body and hair before remerging and climbing out of the lake. He wanted to tell Kuroka of this place, but he never had a chance to before the incident. He went over to a cabinet dressing in a pair of fitted shinobi slacks and sandals with a fishnet shirt. He went over to the wardrobe, opening it wide, retrieving a clothing item he never expected to wear again. He places his arms through the silk black cloak with its red clouds and smooth it out, letting the high collar hide the bottom of his face. This very cloak symbolized the ideals of his organization, but he weren't wearing it for that reason. No, he was wearing it because it brought him closer to his Pain persona. He has been Nagato so long that he almost forgot how it felt to be Pain until that bastard devil reminded him, of course. Pain pulls on his black shinobi boots and turns around, leaving his headband in the drawer, letting his spiky hair out freely. He continues on his way towards the exit of the cave before stopping and grabbing a ninja tool holster and tying it around his thigh. He was going to need that and made his way out the cave. Once both feet left the cave, the fires immediately went out, no longer able to stay lit without his energy feeding it anymore. Pain silently watched as the devils low, mid and high class went about their day as if not one of their brethren has committed a grievous crime. Devils and their society was so corrupted they reincarnate the dead and force them to do their bidding just so they could increase their numbers. Innocents who think they become something stronger as nothing but pawns in a game of death. I want them to feel pain. He crosses his fingers together. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 7 copies of the man form beside him and he silently ordered them to head into the city. This was the first time he used the clone jutsu after watching Naruto do it. He read about it in the scroll, just never used the technique since he already had several copies of himself. He noticed how once he spawned them he could see out of their eyes just like they were his other paths. He ordered the clones to separate it and watch as they follow his command, going to separate areas. He stops his main clone who was standing in front of a red-haired man. The man had enormous reserves just like him and he deems him as someone important. The man eyes him cautiously, apparently getting a sense of danger from him. Well, good, he should. Who are you? The red-hair man asks. Devils and followers circle around them wanting to hear what was being said. Pain kept silent before answering the man, an enraged father who wants justice for what happened to his family. The redhead looks puzzled. What are you talking about? Pain chuckles, his deep powerful voice making the hair on everyone's neck stand at attention. Of course you don't know. Tell me, devil, who are you? The man raised a brow, curious of the stranger. Now very few people don't know who I am. I am Sirzek Lucifer. One of the 4 Satans I see. You are one of the reasons why this world is like this. I have seen some arrogant people in my lifetime, but you devils. He trails off. It doesn't matter. I am bringing forth a reckoning. He shouted using the voice amplifier jutsu to spread his voice. If you stand with the devils then you shall be smite. This is God's will. This is my will. He stared at the man known as Sirzek, their eyes meeting for the first time and the devil eyes widen in surprise at the sight of his eyes. This is going to hurt, Sirzek mumbles after feeling the energy build up. Few seconds before. If you stand with the devils then you shall be smite. This is God's will. This is my will. The original Pain smirks as he focuses the clone energy. Clone great explosion. The clones he sent throughout the city begin to glow before their chakra ignited, causing an enormous explosion, killing whoever that was amongst them. Even a building topple over, mostly likely one of them enter a building. When he focused his attention on that one clone, he could hear loud screams and panicking of the devils that were lucky enough not to be in the area of the explosion. Pain turns around and begins walking away with a smile on his lips. He was officially an enemy of the underworld, which brought back memories. They will feel true pain. Kaneko was sitting beside Kiba while their president was talking to the newest member of the peerage, the incompetent pervert Issei. She went back to focusing on her sweets. The Neko didn't understand why her president was so fixated on the idiot. He was a pervert, stupid, not that great looking, and an all-around annoyance. Well, to her anyway, she seems to be the only one that cares. Kiba just went with the flow and Akano seems to like him enough to play on his perverted tendencies. Kaneko, introduce yourself. Kaneko nods to her president. No matter the choices the girl made, she would always protect and follow her. Her family were the ones that saved her from death and took care of her even though they didn't have to. She sighs, not wanting to go back into those memories again, the painful ones that she kept only to herself, that president don't even know about. Kaneko to Zhu. The Neko looks at Issei in annoyance and her butterscotch eyes flashes into a threatening purple before they return back to their original color. Issei shot back, afraid of the eye change. Rias smiles. Don't worry about her, Issei, that happens when she's annoyed. Kaneko nods. Akano and Rias were the only 2 that knew about what she can really do when her eyes were in that state. On to club duties. Pain walks through the human realm. This was literally the first time since he awoken in the underworld that he decided to come through to the human realm. He found the air quite sickening in this realm, but looking at a night sky was quite a treat for him. He continues his walk before stopping and turning around. The man who had set him free was smirking. "I see you're already on a road of destruction, my friend," the man greeted. Pain nods. "They will know pain before I am through with them." The man nods. "I am Koka. I am the one who've set you free." "I've noticed," Pain stated dryly. "Anyway, I am here to partner up with you. I can be the brains of the operation while you are the muscle, the one that wreaks havoc upon the devils and their half-wit followers." "So you wish to use me?" the shinobi states casually while eyeing the man with a blank look across his face. The fallen angel smirks. "Only for our mutual goal, my friend." Pain raised his hand out. "Heavenly attraction of all of creation." A strong force lifted Kokabiel of his feet and into Pain outstretched palm. The shinobi raised the man up with great strength before slamming him into the cement. A black rod extended from his arm and into the fallen angel chest. "A god is no one pawn. Heavenly subjugation of the omnipresent god. Now you shall be smite like the rest." A massive force slams into Kokabiel, crushing every single bone in his body and creating a crater around the man body. The god turns around and began walking away. Such blasphemy. Pain casually walks amongst the human population. After careful consideration, he decided it would be better to blend in for the time being, so he borrows some clothes from a clothing store. He wore a pair of fitted jeans and a black turtleneck and pair of sunglasses to hide his eyes. Though he safely blended in with the clothing, there was one fact that he couldn't hide: his mere superior stature and powerful posture. He stood amongst powerful shinobi and so had to keep his posture a certain way, powerful and intimidating. So when he walks amongst the general population, it was times when they would turn to get a look at him. He continues to walk to a more secluded area and tilted his head to look at who were following him in his peripheral. "The aura you're giving off, you're powerful. Who are you?" she asks. The shinobi removes his shades and places them in his pocket, before fully turning around. The girl takes a step back in shock. "Those eyes, impossible. You speak as if you know what my eyes signify," the shinobi asks curiously. The girl, trembling in fear, drops to her knees in submission. "Of course, master. Those eyes were the same as God," she mumbles to herself. "The eyes of the sage." Pain eyes narrows onto her, taking in the information. Their god were the sage of the six paths. He begins chuckling to himself. "So the sage was here at one point. Interesting. That can only mean your god reincarnation. You have the same eyes as him." She spoke up in excitement from the ground. "I am neither the sage nor his reincarnation. We are separate entities with differing goals. I have these eyes for one reason." Pain. He begins to walk away. "Wait, stop. You may not be God, but you have power. My group is staying in a church not too far from here. If you change your mind, my name is Rainier." Pain kept walking, faintly hearing what the fallen angel said. The Akatsuki leader sighed, figuring he would have to take up the woman offer sooner or later. He was powerful without a doubt, but he couldn't wage a war on the underworld by himself. Just like he had Akatsuki in the elemental nations, he would need them here as well. His blank gaze fell upon the church. If the woman wanted someone to worship, it might as well be a god of his caliber. He had lead the hidden rain pretty well, so his leadership was top-notch. He walked towards the doors and blew them open, surprising the current residents at his appearance. He opted to wear his shinobi gear just in case if it involved him getting in a fight. His eyes quickly scan the occupants and finally settle on looking over them all. The woman who first spoke to him was a young, attractive woman whom seems to be in her late teens, with long black hair down to her hips and shining violet eyes. She wore a short black dress with a small, purple jacket over it. A male that was standing poised in a ready stance but held a smug smirk over his lips. He looks to be a gentleman with short black hair and darkish blue eyes. He wore a pale violet trench coat over a white dress shirt and black pants and shoes, and finishes it off with a black fedora. The third was another female with equal beauty to the first. She was taller than Rainier and had a large bust as well, except her hair was a dark blue and had a bang that covered her right eye. She, like the guy, wore a trench coat-like top with a wide collar, and an equally matching miniskirt and black heels. His eyes ran over the opening of her trench coat that reveals the top of her well-endowed chest. He looks to the last of the group, which showed a younger girl with twin blonde ponytails and had bright blue eyes. The girl attire was quite different from the other two. She wore a black Lolita dress with white frills, a black bow on the front and white thigh-high socks and black shoes. "Who might this be?" the male asks curiously while tipping his fedora forward. Rainier, "Hush them, this is the man I was telling you about. Hurry up and kneel," she whispered furiously. He doesn't look like much to me, even if his power is a bit high. The second woman Calawarner crosses her arms under her chest, unknowingly pushing them out further. I don't know, Rainier, the youngest spoke unsurely, agreeing with the others. Pain merely stare at them coldly, listening as they rattle on and on. They already was beginning to annoy him, and it only been a few seconds they was quickly starting to remind him of how childish the S-ranked ninja he led was, Hidan and Kakazu and their moments, then it was Deidara and Sasori. He hated unnecessary chatter. He needed to check them like he did the Akatsuki at various times. He smirks when he was reminded of Itachi and his hesitance to speak about Naruto to Sasori. He quickly shattered the Uchiha ego. Pain glares at the fallen angels before him and release his killing intent, bringing the other three to their knees. Silence. The shinobi sat down on one of the many church's benches. He leans his head back, bringing his hands up, wiping his face. Flashback. Nagato kneel. His knees were covered in dirt and smudges of earth were on his cheek. This was the first time he ever felt genuine peace. He lifted his head and looked to the woman beside him. He chuckles to himself. Here he was covered in dirt, while the short woman beside him in a white kimono magically didn't have a single spot of brown on her. Kana glances at him. What? She asks curiously. Why do you not have a single stain on you? The woman merely shrugs. It's a secret. Nagato nods. I'll find out your secret eventually. A moment of silence descended upon the two as they continue to work on the flower garden. The ex-shinobi glances at the woman before smiling softly and placing the flower into the dirt. What did you do before coming here? She broke the silence with a question he wasn't sure he wanted to answer. Kana notices his silence. You don't have to answer. Nagato nods, letting the silence sink in before looking at her in his peripheral. I've killed people. He could see Kana hands stop tending the garden before resuming. Why? She asks. For peace, the Akatsuki leader answers without a hitch. Bloodshed doesn't make peace, it only makes more bloodshed. She challenges his beliefs firmly. When one person feels the same pain as another, they will hesitate inflicting that same pain onto another because they know how it feels. Nagato stops and looks at her. I've inflicted pain to bring peace. Does that make me a bad person? Kana ponders the question to herself before glancing in his direction. No, it makes you a hero. Just a misunderstood hero is all. Nagato smiles softly. I hope that's true, and it isn't. A hero should be able to save his wife and children. I am the villain. Pain mumbles softly before turning his gaze upon the silent fallen angels and glares at them. You work for me now. Is there anything I should know? We have the Twilight Healing Sacred Gear. Rainier informed him. Go get the brat middled. The blonde angel nods before scampering out the room. She returns with a young beautiful nun and push her over to Rainier. The lead angel smiles before telling Asia to kneel. Asia remembers how you used to pray at night. The girl nods, while Rainier continued to whisper into her ear. This is him, the man you prayed to before you. You wouldn't know, but his eyes give him away. That is God. Go introduce yourself. She pushes her forward. Pain watched the whole thing in interest. She really wanted him to play the god of legend. He has no problem being a god, but he will do it in his own way. Child, kneel. Asia got to her knees and bows before the man. What is your name? Asia smiles shyly. My name is Asia Argento. Pain stood and placed his hand on her stomach beneath her chest. He wondered if he could sense sacred gears like he could Biju. You have a unique ability, Asia. He looks at the Bible in her hand, taking it from her. Child, you will no longer need that. Asia looked conflicted and he smirks. Don't worry, child. He stood and helped her up before looking to Rainier. Tell me, Rainier, what you know of Sirzek Lucifer. Rainier spoke up instantly. Well, he has a younger sister, not too far from here actually. The Akatsuki leader smirks. That's interesting. Keep the rest occupied. And don't do anything stupid. I don't need you dying. Pain spoke to his followers before turning his gaze upon the school. He smirks as the last of the students went inside to their classes. The shinobi just followed suit. He focused on the current strongest energy source and stopped on the 3rd floor of the building. His footsteps echoed off the white tiles of the floor as his feet made contact. The shinobi simply stares down the hall. Rias were sitting beside Akano as they both listened to the teacher's instructions. She was getting a bad feeling all of a sudden, but she crushed it and paid it no mind. Shinra Tensai. She and the rest of the students looked around at the sudden yell before rumbling shook the floor. The Gremory eyes widen as a powerful force begins tearing apart the walls, flinging shattered glass as a wave knocks against her and the rest of the class in a devastating impact. She could hear many of the students screaming in pain while the force carried her and few others through several of the class's walls, smashing everything and everyone in its path, and it was so many students that was in the way. The brick walls of the building finally managed to stop her, but she was terribly sore. She looks around and could see she was separated from Akano. Soft footsteps drew her attention as a man with short spiky wild hair emerges from the hole that her body created. She looked around as students finally broke themselves from their stupor run. She pleaded. This man didn't look like he had a problem with them, just her, even though she never seen him before. She finally had the strength to step out from the brick-indented wall and shakily stood on her feet. To her horror, several of the students stood in front of her while the rest threw school supplies at her attacker. The man barely flinches as he stares down the Gremory air. She raised her head. Please don't hurt the. She was cut off as another powerful wave blasted the students away. A few of them was flung through the windows and out into the hallway, while some was even slammed into the walls, but the unfortunate ones was thrown out the windows and 4 floors down to their death. Rias back into the wall. The power that was wafting off the man was tremendous. What she did to gain this man ire, she asks herself. Also, why did the man show no remorse at such brutality, killing innocent people like this? She stood her ground, although feelings of hopelessness were settling into her gut and even sorrow at the loss of her classmates. Rias realized she wasn't as strong as she thought she was, a high-class devil trembling at the sight of a mere man, who had such a terrifying aura. Though the Gremory heir only knew one thing that could help her right now. She ran as fast as she could outside the classroom, hoping she could get to her peerage with their combine might. They should be able to topple this monster, right? Pain merely shook his head before disappearing. He reappeared in front of the fleeing devil so unexpectedly she didn't have time to stop. He places his palm on her chest where her heart would be, and all she could was stare in surprise. Heavenly subjugation of the omnipresent god. A massive force slammed against her and carried her down the hall of the school and smashing her straight into the brick wall again. He slowly approaches with a black metal rod that extended from his arm and into his hand. He grabbed the both of her wrist and placing them above her head while bringing the chakra rod in for the kill. The girl closes her eyes before squealing in pain. He back up and look at his handiwork. The chakra rod went through both of her hands and into the wall behind her. She finally got a close look at him and her mouth opens in surprise at what she saw. The very same eyes Kaneko had. Pain merely ignored the look before inching his head close, going way past the limits of personal space. Rias Gremory, sister of Sirzek Lucifer, correct? He asks, already knowing the answer. Let's have a little chat. Pain inches closer. Now you're going to tell me everything you know about your brother and the other Satans. The Gremory heiress scowls. Get away from Bucko. A loud yell came as a brown hair boy in the Kuo male school uniform came charging down the hallway towards them. Pain merely glances back at the boy before refocusing his eyes on the girl. He sighs in annoyance at being interrupted before turning around completely. I told them to keep the rest of you busy. They couldn't even do that. Issei, run. Go get a Kano or Kaneko. The boy looks between the two of them before gulping after meeting Pain eyes. Issei shook his head as he kept looking between the two of them, apparently in conflict on what to do. Pain smirks. Let me make it easy for you. A massive force slams into Issei, sending him back down the hallway he came. He turns around. I've changed my mind. He extended a chakra receiver, readying to impale her with it, only to suddenly stop as a strangely familiar but different energy source stood behind him. He slowly turns back and came eye to eye with someone he never thought he would see again. The girl was short just like her mother and had the very same short white hair just like Kana. The only thing that was different were her eyes and the corrupted feel to her presence. She had the very same steel purple eyes as him, and he could do nothing but stare. Chiron. The girl drops the boy he sent flying down the hall before narrowing her eyes on him, or precisely his own. Don't call me that. The girl screamed while flying at him. A huge amount of chakra was engulfing her fist and she struck out. The shinobi dodged the fury-enhanced strike with ease as she came at him with reckless abandon. Her hand nothing but a flurry of small powerful strikes as he continued to dance around them before striking out, plucking her forehead and noticing that she didn't even flinch at the contact. He were no Tsunade, but that was chakra and force strike and she tanked it. He jumped back, putting some space between them, and the girl jumped straight back into the fray. He faintly saw the boy tugging at the chakra receiver, keeping the girl in place but mainly focus on his daughter. He knew for a fact it was her since she responded to her given name, but he was wondering why she was so adamant with trying to knock his head off. He continues to dodge the girl before knocking her fist away and kicking her directly in the stomach, sending her skidding back. He glares at the redhead whom turned his daughter into a devil. He breathed in deeply, calming himself. She didn't remember him as all. She was only 3 when he was captured. He blinks only to reopen and find her fist only inches away from his face. Chiron. I am your father, he spoke softly. Kaneko fist stopped right before impact. Father and daughter stared into each other's eyes. Kuroka said you were dead, she mumbles softly. Pain visage softens. I was captured, Chiron. I am sorry. Water gathers in the young Nako eyes, until a split second later her eyes harden. Pain felt the change and immediately shouted Shinra Tensai. He let loose a lower-powered repulsion, forcing the girl back into the boy Issei. I won't let anyone hurt Bucko, she mutters the words affectionately before balling her fist tightly. Not even you, Nagato. She spoke with such vehemence that it actually hurt the shinobi physically. Pain drops his head as he clenches his fist before bringing it back up, keeping it void of all emotion. Very well, show father how strong you have become. He brings his palm out. Heavenly attraction of all of creation. Kaniko's eyes widen as she was lifted off her feet and dragged towards her father. As she came closer she felt a certain urge to shove him as hard as she could. She releases the urge and a force smashes into Pain, sending him skidding back. The former Akatsuki leader smirks. So you learned Shinra Tensai. The Nako was breathing heavily from exerting too much energy at once, though it seems you don't use it often. The Gremory girl stood in front of Kaniko, her arms outstretched in a protective manner, and all he could feel was a boiling rage simmering beneath his cold facade. The girl who put his daughter in servitude, she was also the reason why Chiron was fighting against him. Two more people decided to show themselves standing beside the redhead as a wall of security. A blonde male and a long purple hair girl. They all stood together with his daughter as if they were her family. He faintly felt his fallen angels taking up position behind him with their spears of light in their hands. I've told you all to keep them busy. I am sorry, master, they slipped by us, Rainier informs him. Pain could see several scratches between the newly arrivals, showing they was in a fight, but no serious damage amongst them. You did your best, good job. He could practically feel the smiles that were displaying on the fallen angels' faces. He focuses on his daughter, immediately locking eyes with her. Chiron. Let me show you a true Shinra Tensai. He glances back at Rainier and the fallen angel got the hint. Let's go. Wings sprouted from the beautiful woman back and she dove out the window before floating outside the school, while her brethren follow behind her. Pain places out his arms, gathering his chakra. The tiles on the floor shatters, creating a crater beneath his feet. Ria's eyes widen. Run, she shouted. Her peerage turned to flee, excluding Kiba, who charged the man with a sword, readying to impale him. Feel my pain. Heavenly subjugation of the omnipresent god. He releases the attack and watch as it blew away the blonde that was only centimeters away from impaling him. The repulsion tears the very floor from the foundation while slamming into the fleeing devils, carrying them away with his vengeance. He floated to the outside as the rest of the upper floors came crashing down, most likely around the girl and her peerage, including his daughter. He landed on the ground, ignoring the screams of the innocents that was caught in the powerful attack. The fallen angels look at the man in surprise and even fear as he approached them slowly. Rainier hesitantly reach out. My lord. She questions and the man merely walked past her, ignoring the questioning looks. We're leaving, he spoke coldly as a small tear gathered between the corners of his eyes. Sierzek was seated at his desk, his head in his palms. He just received news of Kuo Academy being attacked by an unknown man. How the hell was he supposed to explain this? So many lives were lost in that attack, and for what? He doesn't know what the man wanted or why he was targeting the devils. He raised his head as his wife Graphia enters the room. Rias and her peerage is fine. Some broken bones and bruises, but fine nonetheless. Luckily Sona and her peerage weren't there at the time, or they would have also got caught in the attack. Sierzek smiles in relief at the good news. Good, I don't want to lose any more people. Have you spoken with Ria Tan directly? Graphia stayed quiet. Yes, she said Kaniko's father was the man behind it all. Sierzek frowns. I thought Kaniko's parents were dead. He shook it off. Well, anyway, we know what to look for now. I want this man found and imprisoned. A black hair woman with orange highlights lay down in the bed with her feet up, kicking back and forth. Her kimono was falling down her shoulders, showing a large amount cleavage. Her steel purple eyes widen at what was on the front of the newspaper. A man staring his steely gaze into the reader's soul. She sat up with a wide smile. She definitely remembered the man as it was just yesterday. His orange spiky hair, the entrancing eyes of their family, even the numerous piercings he had. How could she not remember the man who took care of her? The man who sacrificed himself for her and Chiron. Dad, she whispers in delight. Pain sat in the church. Rainier and the rest was in the inner sanctum training with several of his clones. He turned his head, hearing faint footsteps, and could see the girl Asia smiling shyly. He looked at the girl and could feel that she truly was innocent, not a bad bone in her body. She sat beside him and gasped at the small thin cut on his cheek. God, you're bleeding. He looks at her. Call me Pain. She looks curious before nodding, reaching out to touch him. He felt a warm sensation as the girl used her sacred gear. A small look of concentration adorned her face. Then it just happened. Pain had felt pain. Not emotional pain but physical and agonizing pain as the man fell forward onto his knees. The girl yelps while shooting to her feet to help him, only for his arm to lash out and push her back onto her bum. The man let out an agonizing roar that was so loud it made her ears want to bleed. Rainier and her group came sprinting in with looks of horror on their faces as flames engulfed the man. Asia covered her mouth as tears threatened to spill, her kind heart not used to seeing anything like this, that when all of them saw it, thick energy chains appeared around him. They began to hang limply when his shouts of pain turned to bouts of laughter. You think the pain drove him insane? Donasek asks. The women ignore him as the chains began breaking, dropping to the floor, rattling as they began to disappear and dissolve into nothingness. Pain stopped his mad cackle, and look at his hands, I thought. He sealed them away. An uncharacteristic smile forms on his lips. That false god just made them dormant. The fool. My power is back. His eyes began to feel heavy and he fell into a heap, letting the darkness drag him into a deep slumber. Rainier crouched down, feeling his pulse, checking to see if the man was still alive. She grabs his arm, placing it around her neck, while Calawarner came to his other side to help her carry him to the bedroom in the back. He's just asleep. Whatever happened probably tired him out, Rainier informs them. Sirzek was sitting across from a man with dark blue long hair with a pair of reading glasses over his eyes. He wore an expensive black suit. Sirzek, it's been a long time. The man smiled. Sirzek never liked this devil. He had the face of a snake and he even thought like one. Why are you here, Balthazar? The devil's grin while sliding the newspaper over to Sirzek. Sirzek narrowed his eyes. You have information on this man? Balthazar nods. Sirzek, we have a common goal, as I want this man captured for destroying my estate and killing dozen of my servants. I know how to do it. He places a briefcase on the table and opening it, Sirzek picked up the ceremonial dagger and eyes the man. This weapon has energy draining properties. Stab him with and all his energy shall drain away, making him as weak as newborn baby. Sirzek looks over the man. Okay. You don't happen to know where he's at by chance, do you? Sirzek chuckles while questioning playfully. Balthazar stares at him dryly. As a matter of fact, I do. A man with long crimson hair focused his eyes on a metal metropolis. The vision of a megacure was picture perfect as the rain fell relentlessly, soaking him down to the bone. His steel purple eyes slid to his right as a man with spiked gingered hair stepped beside him, wearing the same black cloak with the red clouds as him. The two men stood comfortably, basking in the silence in the sight of the peaceful village that wasn't torn asunder by war. So you have a family now, the newcomer smirks before sitting on the edge of the cliff that overlooked the village. The redhead glances to his longtime friend and former leader. I had a family, he corrected him. Yahiko rolled his eyes. Chiron isn't dead, she is just confused and upset. Nagato. Like we were when Jiraiya-sensei decided to leave us. Nagato kept silent, his eyes not wavering from the city. It hurt knowing she chose to side with the very thing I despise. Why, Yahiko? Why does it hurt? Because you feel you will lose her like everyone else. A soft emotionless tone answer for the man as a woman with short blue hair stood beside him. Conan, nice to see you made it. Yahiko grins, looking at the woman who crosses her arms. Yahiko and Nagato, it's good to see you too, she greeted as warmly as she could without letting in any emotion. Now back to the topic. Yahiko refocus on Nagato. You want your daughter back? All you have to do is talk to her and listen. The three friends let the silence overcome them once again. You truly did a wonderful job leading the village, Nagato. Yahiko started up before turning a firm gaze upon his redhead friend. Why? Nagato looks at him curiously. While Conan moved and sat beside Yahiko, he means, why are you fighting the devils? Is it for revenge? She asks. Nagato hesitated in answering before looking down at the two, answering honestly, yes, for what he done to Kana. Does that make me a bad person? No, it makes you like the rest of us, human, Yahiko answered. Conan grabbed Nagato's hand, pulling him down beside them. These devils have no law, no order to them. They are exactly like the shinobi in the elemental nations. They force people into servitude, some on the verge of death, forcing their hands. All humans are afraid of death. The devils know that, so they come to them and give them a trade, taking advantage and exploiting it. The poor fools who doesn't know they may have peace end up suffering in their hell. Nagato turns to his friends. We are but men, drawn to act in the name of revenge we deem to be justice, but when we call our vengeance justice, it only breeds more revenge, forging the first link in the chains of hatred. A soft melodic laugh drew the three shinobi attention and a woman with white hair stood behind them. The three of them stood and Nagato looked at the woman in surprise even as she approached him and wrapped her arms around him soothingly. Then don't let it fool you. Call it exactly as it is, revenge. Let the chains of hatred empower you, Nagato. They took our daughter and who knows what happened to Koka. Destroy them. Three of them surrounded Nagato and they spoke as one. Baptize this world in blood. Rainier leaned against the wall of the bedroom with her arms crossed. She watched silently as her master slept. She has been in this room for 3 days now waiting for him to awake. She even had Asia try to heal him again but nothing happened. He was in perfect health. She could only assume he was in a coma like this from whatever that light was. She tried as best as she could but the others were beginning to notice that she was actually worried about the man. She honestly didn't know why either. She wanted to say because she was using him for his power but quite simply that wasn't the case. She craved for a leader, someone powerful who can protect her and her friends. She watches the door open and Asia poke her head in. Rainier, I am going to buy more groceries. Pain-sama will be hungry when he awakes. Rainier waved the girl off to do what she wanted. She really didn't care at this point in time, and at least one of them was doing something productive with their time. She returns her eyes back onto the sleeping man and she cautiously approaches his bed. She looked at the door again, seeing it open ajar and listening for anyone. After a moment of silence, she hesitantly reached out and ran her fingers through the unconscious man hair, burying her fingers deeply in the man roots. So much power you possess, Pain-sama, she whispered softly, keeping her attention intently on the slumbering man. What are you doing? Rainier's hand shot back to her side as she looks at her brethren Donasek, who was tipping his fedora. Donasek, she took a deep breath, calming herself. I was just checking him for a fever. What do you want? He was cut off as a loud crash echoed from the front doors. The two fallen angels nod to each other before they double time out into the main hall where a man in a burgundy red suit and a white dress shirt and blonde hair stood casually twirling a dagger. This place is filthy just like the residents that reside within it, the man spoke arrogantly with a lace of hatred underneath his tone. Rainier glares at the man who sent her his own. What is a devil doing here? The man smirks. I volunteer to come here and kill the bastard who decided to touch what was mine. That trash will know never to cross Riser Phoenix. He roars as he rose his hands, letting them ignite with flames. Rainier and Donasek withdrew from the scorching heat as the wooden benches caught a blaze from his power. He cackles at the fear they were displaying and ill turn to ash anyone that stands in my way. A blue and pink spear enter through the devil back from behind and the man merely kept laughing. You weak ass fallen. He threw an enormous ball of fire at Rainier, who barely manages to dodge the scorching blast that engulfed Donasek, who couldn't react fast enough in time. Calawarner and Middle stood beside Rainier. Rainier, we have to go. Calawarner whispers fiercely as the fire spread from item to item until the very building was drowning in fire. Rainier looked between the two. No, Pain-sama will be left defenseless if we go. Middle grabs her arm. Yes, but he himself told us not to die. Pain-sama is strong. When he awakes he will find us, or vice versa, but he's a high-class devil. Rainier, we can't stop him. She attempted to tug on Rainier's arm that held her ground until Calawarner grabbed her other arm and helped Middle. Don't be a fool, Rainier, we live to fight another day. Calawarner scolds her as she dragged her away, flying through the printed glass and away from the blazing building. Riser Phoenix scowls. Filthy vermin. He grabs the dagger and walks towards the back, sneering at the dust-covered walls, only to find a man sleeping in the bed. He raised the ceremonial dagger, shoving it into the man's chest. That was easy, he states as the man took a deep gasp, opening his eyes, looking dead at him before falling back into unconsciousness. He snaps his fingers and the chainsaw twins appear beside him. Let's take him back and tell Sirzek the good news. Pain sat in a small metallic chair. His hands was bound together by chains, as were his feet. The chains themselves were connecting to the floor underneath him, and the shinobi just sat staring at the wall through the metal bars of his cell. He casually watched as a man with long crimson hair stare at him from the other side of the bar barrier. Why are you attacking devils? Why did you attack my sister? Did you do it to get to me? Pain merely kept his silence and continuing to staring at the man. The man shook his head. Go ahead, keep your silence, because I am planning to keep you here for a long time. Terrorist finally captured. The underworld is at peace again. Kuroka read the newspaper headline over and over again. She looked at the picture of her father staring at the cell bars, his face is cold and emotionless. Not this time. She stood up, grabbing her kimono from off her bed and wrapping it around herself. Never again. Kaneko stares at the table. The sweet Sakano had went out to get left there untouched and forgotten. She was contemplating what she would do. Kaneko, the young Nekosho looks to her king and could see the worry that has filled her eyes. Are you okay? She kept quiet before nodding. Yes, I am fine. Rias, she lied. Rias smiles before sitting next to the girl. You're a terrible liar. Kaneko. She watches the girl, eyes flashes in annoyance. Tell me what's wrong. The Neko kept quiet, not sure if she should bring this up to the girl that was almost killed by her father, so she merely kept her lips firmly sealed. It's about that man, isn't it? Rias guessed her thoughts right on. The young girl sighed. Yes, she answered. The Gremory heiress nods. The man is dangerous and powerful. I could feel his power. It was suffocating. It's like I am standing next to my brother when he's serious. She looks to her rook. But that man is your father and you have the right to answers. If you're thinking you should see him, then you should. Rias stood up smiling at her. Though be very careful, I can't lose you. Kaneko. The girl stood nodding at her king before walking out the castle front door. Pain could hear faint footsteps coming down the hall and the man assumes he had another visitor. He raises his head to see no one else but his daughter standing on the other side of the cell. Kaneko looked to her right and left before removing a key from her pocket that she snatched from the sleeping guard. She unlocks his cell and stepped inside, stopping right in front of her father. Nagato, Chiron, the shinobi father, met his Nekosho daughter eyes. Once his purple made contact with her yellow, the Neko eyes morphed into their Rinnegan state. Why? Pain stayed quiet before sighing. I remember your mother as clear as day. Her distinct energy, and the sound of her soothing voice as she rocked you back and forth in her arms. He chuckles morbidly. Between your mother and me, you and Kuroka intelligence is quite high when you put your mind to it. Kana always said our children will be great and I always believed that. Even now. Tears begin to gather in his eyes and he crushed them. Kana was taken away from me. The devil had his men pinned. He stops to gather his thoughts. Anyway, she was killed and you and Kuroka was captured, and to save you two I turned myself in. Kaneko kept quiet, letting the man continue on. The prick lied, which I wasn't too surprised about. I've sent you all flying hoping Kuroka will be able to get away with you. In the confusion, turn out I have succeeded. At the time though I was led to believe different. I have observed devils before when I was with Kana. I could see how they trick and manipulate those into service for them. When I was imprisoned for all these years, my hatred for them has only increased with the time. Kana, Kuroka and you Chiron were my life, the light that was keeping away the consuming darkness. You know and see it as well, Chiron, how evil and cruel the devils can be. I know you have. I can see the pain in your eyes. I despise what they have done to Kana. I hate that they had me imprisoned and mentally torture me so I can believe all I had was gone. I hate that they force others into service. That's why I did what I did, Kaneko, and that why I will continue to do so. I will show the devil's pain. The Nekosho frowns, finally seeing the whole picture. She was fortunate that she had been with Rias the entire time. If Sirzek didn't take pity on her, she would be dead or worse, stuck with a pig for a master. Maybe she would have done what Kuroka did, but her older sister let the senjutsu consume her. She looks at her father, finally seeing the man in a different light. I understand now. But not all devils are like that. There are good devils and bad devils, just like there are good men and bad men. Rias took care of me. The Gremory treats me like one of their own after Sirzek saved me from execution. They are like an extension of my family, Nagato. I can't and won't let any harm come to them. Kaneko turns away and walks over to the exit of the cell, opening the door. She slightly turns her head. If you hate them, does that mean you hate me as well? She spoke softly, but Nagato, enhanced shinobi hearing, pick up the words, I am a devil now. She closed the gate. Stopping at Nagato final words to her, I could never hate my daughter. The Neko walks off, not hearing the last of what he said. Even if she hates me. The shinobi closed his eyes as the words kept swirling around in his head. Bloodshed makes more bloodshed. Why are you fighting the devils? Is it for revenge? I shall believe in you, Naruto. If you kill someone, someone else will kill you. I want you to feel pain, to think about pain, to accept pain. To know pain. Baptize this world in blood. Baptize this world in blood. Baptize this world in blood. Kaneko stood on the Gremory grounds. She just got back from the city dungeons and were heading up towards the castle when she felt a presence behind her. She turns and the woman she didn't expect or wanted to see again stood behind her. The little sweet lover. Chiron, it has been such a long time, hasn't it? Kaneko glares at the girl and Kuroka smiles, placing her hands out in a friendly gesture. Down, Pipsqueak, I am here to ask for your help. The rook raised her brow, which by itself said, are you kidding me? Kuroka grins, I need your help in rescuing father. He's being imprisoned in the city dungeons and I know you can get access to him if you ask your king. Kaneko tightened her fist, really thinking about knocking her sister head off. I've just came from said place. Kuroka eyes brighten up and took a step closer. How is he? He's being treated well? Did he ask about me? Does being in his presence really makes you quiver? She fired off questions one after another. The Neko eyes flashes in annoyance. Kaneko stumbles before falling to the ground beside her sister from the sudden earthquake. What the hell? Kuroka asked before looking to her sister and seeing her run towards the city. A few minutes before, Pain finger twitches as he gathered the chakra he needed. The dagger that was supposedly to be draining his chakra was useless now that he was at full power. He stares at the ceiling, letting his chakra build up. When they are going to learn that no prison can hold him, he closed his eyes. He let his chakra expand around him, crushing everything in his vicinity. Heavenly subjugation of the omnipresent God. The chakra swept out from him as a divine wave of destruction, crushing and sweeping away all in path, leaving the building nothing but a crater that used to have a prison there. After a few minutes of breathing, he opens his eyes to see lower and mid-class devils dropping into the crater across from him. He expected soldiers to be on standby, so he waited. He wanted to make an example out of these fools. His hardened gaze looked at the many faces of the devils and could very well see the sweat dripping at the edge of their brows. They was trying to stay standing at his overwhelming power. He chuckles. Your blood will be the beginning to a ruthless and pain-filled end. His deep masculine voice sent shivers down their spines. He watches as they twitch and anxiously move about. Why do you tremble at the sight of me? Do I frighten you? He took a step and disappears in a burst of speed, reappearing in the middle of the devils. A black chakra receiver sticking through the heart of a random devil he appeared in front of. The others quickly move away from the man, surrounding him in a wide circle. Well, good, be afraid, because the war begins today. The devils all rushed him and he met them halfway, bringing his fist up and smashing into the face of a devil that immediately went down like a sack of potatoes. He enhances his strength with chakra, making his blows 10 times more deadly as he tore through them. He went low, dodging an overhead kick before grasping the man leg and bringing his elbow down, breaking the limb in two before lashing out with his body, tossing him into a pair of approaching devils, knocking them over. A black chakra receiver extends from his hand and stabs a man through the chest and slashing another who was behind him down the middle, splattering the ground with a crimson life force. He tosses the black receiver, impaling a man through the eye socket before raising his arms, Shinra Tensai. A wall appears, knocking the devils back, crushing a few before he flipped through hand seals fire style, great fireball jutsu. A huge ball of fire erupted from his mouth, turning whatever in it path into crisp. He dodges to his as a devil tries to punch him, only to hit air and finding Nagato behind him. He wrap his hands around the devil neck and snap it with one fluid motion before looking at the others coldly. Shadow clone technique. Several solid clones appear beside the man before shooting into the fray. Kaneko finally arrived to the site of the battle, only to find countless bodies lying on the ground. She looks amongst them, not finding her father except for puddles of blood. She looks at the battlefield and shook her head, no longer able to see the results of her father doing. She trembled, actually afraid. For once this wasn't a battle, this was a massacre. She turns as several high-class devils appear on the scene. Kaneko to Zhu, you are under arrest for assisting in the escape of the terrorist known as Pain. The Neko eyes widen. Rias stood in front of her brother, her chest huffing and puffing after running all the way to his office from the estate. With her emotions going haywire, she didn't want to try a teleportation sigil. She slammed her hands onto his desk with wide eyes. Sirzek, you have to let Kaneko go. You know she doesn't have anything to do with breaking that man out. She jumped straight to the point. The Lucifer frown and turn away from his sister. I wish I can re-attan, but it's not that simple anymore. The heiress frowns, knowing what he meant but not exactly wanting to hear it. But the elder brother took a seat, turning his gaze from the window and look at his sister with sorrow. Kaneko was at the scene of the crime, and if I released her, then the lords and ladies of every noble family that still lives will question me. They will think I am favoring Kaneko because she is the servant of my sister. He crossed his fingers, and I cannot have that. That will undoubtedly cause more trouble than good, even if we did get this situation under control. I will make sure she have a fair trial, that's without a doubt, but I can't and will not release her. Rias' eyes stare at him in anger. But if she was by chance to escape, with everything that is going on, my soldiers will not be able to track her down due to me having to station them at key points just in case if the fallen angels get any ideas. Rias looked at him in disbelief before a smile graced her lips. Thank you, Sirzek. She exited his office and stepped outside the building and thought to herself, I won't be able to break her out myself. Even with my peerage, there will be too many guards and many of them will be high level. You're going to need help. She snapped her head to the right, and a woman with black hair with 2 split bangs and a black kimono, and I know someone who can. Rias immediately put her guard up, knowing exactly who it was. Kuroka, a double S-class stray. To find you walking amongst the streets without a care in the world is troubling. The girl placed her hand on her hip before bending forward, making her bust wiggle at the movement. Well, considering that's dad is causing hell wherever he go, put most of the guards at important structures, so strays like me is having easy time to move about without much trouble. Ria's eyes sparkle brightly, coming up with a plan. She would need a small army to get Kaneko out from Dante's circle, the maximum level prison where the most dangerous of devils is sent, but if one person can, then it's him. Kuroka, take me to your father. Hours before Kuroka look at the charred church and sigh, hopefully daddy would have left some clues around here. She stepped through the doors and came upon a sight of a short blonde-haired girl sweeping and humming lightly to herself. The girl looked up at Kuroka, whose brow was raised in surprise. You do realize this place is a lost cause, little nun? The girl smiles sadly, looking up at the devil. I can at least make it somewhat presentable for Pain-sama, for when he return he can. The girl starts to tear up, at least have a place to sit. Though I suppose you're right. The girl sniffle. Kuroka actually felt bad for upsetting her. Pain-sama, huh? So you're one of my dad followers. Asia look at her strangely. Isn't many. Kuroka retuned the look but didn't want to pop her bubble. Anyway, I am looking for my dad. The girl look at her strangely, causing her to sigh. Pain is my father. I am looking for clues to point where he would have gone if a situation like this would have occurred. The girl smiles. Finally she was able to help with something. I didn't find anything strange, but his room is in the back. Surprisingly, the fire didn't do too much damage to that area. You can check back there. No need for that. A deep voice drew both the girls' attention. Asia's eyes brightened upon who stood in the doorway, and she ran forward, stopping in front of the man. Pain-sama. She greeted happily, and the shinobi raised a brow at how happy the girl was to see him. I tried sprucing the place up a bit before you came back. Nagato eyes rose above her head as he looked around only to see it still look like crap. He chuckles in laughter. I see that. Yeah, you did, eh? Yeah, he finished lamely. Dad. A soft sensual voice drew his attention, and a woman with black hair and a kimono that she tried and failingly make it covering her large bust completely. The shinobi eyes widen as his eldest stepped forward. He gently stepped past Asia and opened his arms, letting Kuroka shoot between them and envelope him. A large hug that knocked the man off his feet and onto the ground. Kuroka. He finally released his blank visage and let the tears flow from his eyes as he held her there. Into him. You're alive as well. He stood up, letting the woman wet his shirt with her tears. Both of my girls is alive. He couldn't help but let a grin cover his lips at the thought as she pushed herself off him, still staring at the man in delight. She wiped her eyes. Balthazar said he killed you. He wanted us, but I managed to get Chiron out of harm's way. Tear began welling as she thought about everything that has happened since that day. Before she continued, he placed his hand on her shoulder, shaking his head. You don't need to tell me right now. She smiles sadly, nodding. Pain looked to his right and gestured Asia over, who quickly obeyed and stood beside him. Did you hear anything from Rainier? Asia shook her head negatively, while the man stared ahead in thought. Kuroka grabbed his sleeve, reverting back to her childhood habit. What now, Dad? She questioned. Kaneko has been captured. Pain closed his eyes as he pondered what he would do next. Teal eyes glare at him with fierce determination as she stood protectively in front of his daughter. The shinobi began walking. Kuroka and Asia, come with me. The two girls follow the man to an apartment building, where he wrapped both his arms around their waists and leap onto the roof. Kuroka, find Rias Gremory and bring her to me. He raised his arms above his head and looked at the sky. He began channeling chakra and watch as clouds began to rapidly fall. They grew even wider until they covered the entire human city. The rain began dripping slowly until within seconds it was a downpour engulfing the city. Kuroka took the rain as her signal to leave. Asia, I've located Rainier and the others. I need you to deliver a message and repeat these words as exact as possible. Present Rias sighed as she walked beside the girl Kuroka. She honestly didn't trust the girl one bit, but she can lead her to the man who can get Kaneko out of prison. She stepped onto the roof behind Kuroka, who was holding up an umbrella. The man was simply staring over the city. He gestured with his arms for her to stand beside him. She looked at the space before steeling her nerves and walking forward, completing the action without an ounce of fear on display. Kaneko, father, she greeted, not sure what to call him. Pain, he stayed simply still, letting the rain pelt the city with its fury. Rias glanced behind her and seen Kuroka simply standing quietly in the back. Pain. The name sounded so foreign at the thought of her saying it. I need your help in rescuing Kaneko. Chiron. He said her name in matter-of-fact tone. Kana, and I name her Chiron, Lady Gremory. Her eyes narrow at how civil the man was being after he tried to kill her not too long ago, but she wasn't going to look a gift horse in the mouth, at least not yet. Rias. She informed him, I don't want anything to happen to Chiron as much as you do. Enslaving her were not my intentions. When I found her she needed help, and the best way at the time I could think of was placing her in my peerage under my protection. My family treat our peerage like their family as well. They faced each other in an unflinching stare. Rias felt a tingle in her stomach. The man's eyes were so cold, yet the very swirls displayed stories and knowledge locked within the man. She looked away facing Koka and crossed her arms. She's being held in Dante's circle. That's where all the hardened criminals go. They really didn't want her escaping if they place her there. Koka raised a brow at the girl. She could have sworn the girl. Koka shook her head. Dad. She grabbed the man. Attention, they hold a lot of hardened criminals there. Chiron should NT be in there for too long. Something bad could happen to her. The god of aim nods. What do you need of me? Rias' eyes widened at the man's words. You'll help. Pain gave a small nod. My peerage and I can get in to see her, and when we're there we can set her free. It's getting out that will be a problem due to the guards. Very well, you do what you have to do and I'll make sure you're covered. When she began only to be cut off by him. Just do what you have to do and I'll do what's needed. Rias nods before enveloping herself in a teleportation sigil. Koka nods. You didn't tell her when you'll come to avoid being caught in a trap if she tries to betray you. Pain nods. Koka, I can't take you on this one. His daughter frowns before sighing. Always the obedient one. Where should I go then? Pain walks towards her and slip her a paper. These are coordinates to my hideout. He walked past her only for Koka to hug him again. She pressed her head against his back. You better come back, Dad. He smirks. I will. Rias the heiress appeared in her living room where her peerage sat around waiting for her return. Bucko. Issei greeted before standing. What did Chiron say? The girl sighed, shaking her head. He can't do anything, but I came up with a plan. I will not let Kaneko be blamed for something she didn't do. We're going to break her out, she stated firmly. Her peerage eyes widen. We may be on a run for a while, but Chiron will get everything cleaned up. Akeno smirks. Anything for family? The redhead nods. Anything for family. Kiba pushed himself off the wall. I always wanted to see what it would be like to break someone out of a prison. Issei gulped before pumping his fist into the air. Let's do it, Bucko. Rias place a map and schematics of the prison on the table. Thankfully my brother is Lucifer, so we're privy to information others aren't. She pointed at the donut-shaped prison. Dante's circle is a 360-degree shaped prison, hence its name. We will be teleported to this area outside the prison. No teleporting inside or out until we stepped past the boundary markers that stop all teleportation magic. The bright side, we can just up and walk in to visit. Due to Kaneko being a part of my peerage, it's the exiting part that will be tricky. Akeno raised a brow. I am assuming you have a plan for that? Rias nods before looking between each one of them. She lowered her voice a bit. I met with Kaneko's father. The members of Team Gremory all thought back to the man who tried to kill them and shivered at the thought he agreed to help us escape, even if only for Kaneko's sake. Issei's sweat dropped. Bucko, is it really a good idea to trust that psycho? Rias thought about it before sighing. We probably should NT, but we don't have much choice, and I feel we can at least trust the man to want to save his daughter. Issei thought he should point out that same man also dropped a school building on his daughter as well, but decided against it. All right, Bucko, I am game. Rias smiled. I don't want to lose anyone, so please be careful once we're there. She stood up and the devils stood by their king before letting the sigil engulf them. Rias and her peerage stood in the middle of a dead forest. The moon was a blood red and they shiver at the atmosphere of the prison. Just the surroundings of the prison felt like death. Rias shiver at the thought of what it will feel like inside it. Kaneko sighed as she sat on her little cot. Her eyes glanced at the metal electronic cuff on her right wrist. As long as she was within these walls, she couldn't use her abilities with this thing on her arm. That what was also stopping her from roaming around. She didn't want to get into any trouble with any of the other prisoners, and she definitely seen the crazed looks on some of their faces when she was escorted in. She shifted until she were sitting up on the cot, her legs tucked beneath her as she lay her head on her knees. Rias. Where are you? She whispered sadly. Dad. She thought about the man she spoke to. She definitely knew what the man felt like now, a caged animal behind these bars. Please come get me, she whispered. Kaneko Tujo? She turned to see a brown hair guard. You have visitors. He stepped aside, standing next to his comrades, 5 other guards. Rias entered with Kiba, Akeno and Issei, who was smiling nervously. Rias engulfed Kaneko in a hug, who actually hugged her back. Kiba positioned himself back until he was standing beside the guards. The whole touching moment thing isn't me, he stated out loud. Kaneko looked at the wrists to see the same devices on them as well. Rias, these things stops our powers. Rias nods, still hugging the Neko. I know that, but it won't stop anything. Kaneko blinks. What do you mean? Rias smirks now. Kiba, utilizing all his natural speed from training, turned his attention on the guard right beside him. He grabbed the unsuspecting devil and kneeing him right in his gut while snagging the man baton and holding it like he would wielding one of his normal sword. The other guards reacted instantly, running at him. Kiba dashed between them, blocking a kick from the nearest one. He used the baton, bashing the man in the leg from his ankle to his knee, breaking each point. He tossed him towards the other before using the baton to knock other three out by gliding around them and hitting each one in back of the head with it. He sighed before turning around, clear Rias. Issei poked his head out before whistling at the down guards. Rias nods, grabbing Kaneko hand. Let's go. The group ran as one towards the shutting gates, the siren ringing in theirs. A group of guards stood in formation in front of them. Issei, you're up. The boy grinned as his arm shouted boost, doubling his already strength dragon shot. He launched his gauntlet forward, letting the red energy smash into the guards, knocking them unconscious. They continue running now with the path clear without any obstacles. Issei, with the rest of our powers null, we can only rely on you and Kiba to clear us away. Issei nods, his adrenaline and woman words pumping him up, only to run into a crossroads of hallways. Which way? He asks, only to make the decision and run the way that didn't have any approaching guards coming. No time. This way. They followed him. The group ran into another hallway. Issei fist smash into a guard face while Kiba took care of the other one with a quick whack to back of his skull. Several more came from the other direction, forcing them to take a left down the T-shaped hall. I see light. Issei shouted, only to run into a courtyard filled with dozens of guards who had already subdued the prisoners. Well, this is a surprise. Riser Phoenix stood in the courtyard surrounded by the prison guards. Rias' eyes widened, never expecting to see Riser there of all places. She turned only to see even more guards flooding into the courtyard. She placed Kaneko behind her as they were surrounded. Damn it. The sage eyes look at the large building with spite. He ran forward, his legs nothing but a blur as he dashed between the trees and ran up the side of the wall, leaping onto the roof. Pain closed his eyes. This was the first time in years he would try to summon a creature, and even then this will give him more than enough answers, seeing if his abilities were all there or not. His eyes shot open as he leaped from the building, standing in front of Rias facing Riser. You actually came, Rias stated in surprise while Kaneko stood eyes widen at seeing her father. Riser laughs in spite. This bastard was your backup plan. How the mighty have fallen. Really, Rias resorting to terrorist for help. This is just pathetic. Even worse, I am supposed to marry you. Now you got what you wanted. The wedding is off. I won't lower my family honor to wed a woman who willingly works with the man who caused hell so much grief. Rias blinked. That easy? She thought. Riser smirks. Well, now that you're here, what's next in your agenda? No point in asking though. I am going to turn you all into ash. Kaneko ignored the man taunting and kept her eyes on her father Nagato. She murmured, still surprised at his presence. Pain glanced behind and locked eyes with his daughter. I'll always protect you, Chiron. Whether you're human, Neko, or a devil, I lost you once and it won't happen again. Pain chakra saturated the very air as he spoke. Letting the summons take the god-awful amount of chakra it needed to come to this world. A large decayed arm tore its way through the earth, followed by another gigantic arm similar to the other. The arms hunched their large bodice above the very buildings as it roared. Large protrusions stood erect from its back as it sat itself upright. The large beast roared yet again, showing its carnivorous fangs, and a white sash covered the creature's eyes. The beast leaned over Pain protectively as spear of chakra receivers impale him in the back, draining even more chakra. Pain coughed up blood. Even if it causes me pain, Chiron. Kaneko gasped at the metal spikes impaling into her father Nagato. Dad. The girl shouted as he raised his arm, pointing at the terrified devil's demonic statue of the outer path. Devour them. The statue roared once more as it swung a single arm of destruction. I am continuing this story, no longer having writer block with it. See. Ha 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 ha. What do you guys think? Yay or nay? The flesh-rotten arm swung with devastating force, batting away a dozen or so devils. The unfortunate souls smashed into the walls of the building like flies on a windshield. The devils fire their strongest attacks only for the beast to take the barrage with no qualms, only to continue its carnage as it swatted and bullied the devils away. What the hell is that thing? A devil shouted as he ran away from the beast. The creature of destruction raised its large hand, bring his flat palm down, crushing the fleeing fool. The Gremory peerage stare in fear at the mayhem the beast wrought with its mere existence. Kaneko ignored everything else but kept her eyes on her father, noticing with each movement the beast made. The larger the puddle of blood grew that flowed from his mouth, he continued to glare daggers at the devils that stood between his daughter and her freedom from this prison. The beast roared, releasing a hazy mist in the form of a dragon. The mythical beast flew from the beast mouth and into the masses of the devils with each pass the dragon made. The more the devils dropped like sacks of potatoes. Rias covered her mouth as she finally made out a human's shape in the moving mass of mist. Its expression was of agony as it flown with the beast. The dragon-like mist rose into the sky before coming back down, creating another swath of destruction. Riser eyes widened at the beast and took flight, barely avoiding the mist. The phoenix looked on in utter terror as his fellow devils' souls were taken by the unknown creature that were terrorizing the field. He turned and began flying, only for the giant decaying creature Fist to chase after him. He looked back, able to see the man with the strange eyes glaring at him from his down position. Pain focused hard on the man, willing the arm of the Ghetto Mezzo, demonic statue of the outer path, to move faster. The shinobi dropped to his knee, coughing up blood into his hands. Riser, seeing the action, smirks, only for his eyes to widen as Pain refocus on him and with one final push forced the Ghetto to grab the man within its hand. The fist slowly came back and the beast let out another nightmare-inducing roar as it lowered its hand above its mouth, dropping the phoenix inside and slamming its jaw shut. Kaneko pushed from between Rias and Akano, running over to her father who was on his knees. The beast just hovered above him as the man sat quietly surrounded by the mass of dead devils. She kneeled in front of him. "Dad," she asked in worry. Pain eyes rolled before he focused on her. "Chiron, you're safe." Kaneko eyes began to tear. "It's over, Dad, you don't have to hurt yourself anymore, they're all gone." The shinobi continued to stare at her. "I should have been there for you. God, I dropped a building on you." She faintly noticed Rias and the others stopping a few feet away from them, barely within listening distance. "I've survived, though I barely felt it," she tried to cheer him. Pain coughed up more blood, staining her cheeks with his crimson life force. "I don't care if you're a devil." She nods before glancing up at the large creature. "Make it go away, it's hurting you." He tried to focus, only to grunt as the black chakra receivers slowly removed themselves from his back, returning into the abdomen of the Ghetto Mezzo. The behemoth slowly sunk back into the earth, returning to the realm which it was summoned from. Pain fell forward, only for Kaneko to catch him. The girl's arm immediately went to his back, only for the girl to let out a silent gasp as she felt the wet sensation of blood on him. She looked at her hands, only to shakily fight the urge to scream. Issei, Kiba, the two males of the group, immediately ran forward, lifting the man up. "Bucko, where do we take him?" Pain leaned forward towards his daughter, handing her a slip of paper, a similar written copy of the letter he gave to Kuroka. Kaneko read the slip and she looked at her father. "All right, I know where." Rainier sat with the woman Kuroka. She eyed the woman discreetly as she talked to Asia about her sacred gear, the twilight healing. The woman smiled and teased the nun like they went way back, yet this was the first day they met. The fallen angel sighed. She didn't know Pain had children. Well, not until now, at least. When Kuroka first showed up, she first thought the girl was an assassin that managed to find her master hideout, but no, that wasn't it. The girl claimed she was Pain's daughter. She frowned at her and was going to run her through with one of her spears, only for Asia to walk over and greet the girl, warmly affirming the girl words. So she stepped aside, and now they were here waiting for him to return with his other daughter. She didn't mind the little safe haven Pain had built for himself. It was a large cave that was systematically carved and smoothened from the various earth jutsu he knew. The lamps and electricity run on his enormous chakra reserves, and it even had seals that preserved it and kept it hidden. Apparently you actually had to know where it is in order to get through the genjutsu, hence the paper that he given Kuroka and the words that Asia repeated to her. She even brought the books he had requested that she steal. They were books on the various gods from the different religions, from Zeus to even Anubis. What he was looking for she didn't know, but she knew one thing, and that a man like Pain always had a plan. Kuroka smiled at the girl. "So you really believe my dad is the god of legends?" Asia shook her head. "I mean, he has to be. He's smart, nice and well. Rainier, Kala and Miltelt firmly believe so." Kuroka hummed in thought at her words. "But what do you think?" she asks curiously. Asia opened her mouth to speak, only for Kuroka to stop her with a smile. "Little nun, really think about it before you answer, and then after careful consideration talk to my dad about it." The Nekosho stood up, stretching. "Hey Rainier, I have some affairs to attend to. I'll return sometime later." The fallen angel narrowed her eyes on her before nodding. "I'll let Pain-sama know." Kuroka nods in thanks before turning the corner and leaving the cave, already sure of which tunnels and turns to make to get to the exit. Rainier followed the girl out but stopped at the entrance, needing to get some fresh air. She sighed lightly, irritated that she wasn't able to see Pain-sama yet. She heard the shuffling of feet and prepare herself for battle, only for the least expecting sight to jump from behind the grass and trees. Pervert? She questioned, baffled at the sight of the boy. Issei shook his head before turning. Kaneko, over here, he shouted. The fallen angel looked at the boy, blood-soaked clothes, and watched as the rest of his friends lifted Pain-sama. She hurried over, helping Issei lift the unconscious man up. She felt the blood on the man. Shit, what happened? She questioned no one in particular, but instead of waiting around for an answer, she carried the man into the cave. Kaneko and friends stuck close to the woman as she yelled out, someone name Asia, get ready, Pain-sama is injured. Rainier gently placed the man on the floor. Asia, hurry, she shouted. The blonde nun rushed in before gasping at the sight. Pain-sama. She rushed over, placing her hands on his back. A soft glow appeared under her hands as she began healing the wounds. Rainier looked at Team Gremory with a frost-covered glare. What happened? She demanded to know. The long red-headed man sighed in peace as he overlooked a large village. So you've rebuilt it? Nagato spoke to the man who were currently standing behind him. The blue-eyed blonde didn't say anything, just stood there examining his distant cousin, if they can call each other that, before finally speaking up with a deep and more mature tone than before. Yeah, it took some work, but I did it. I finally became Hokage. Nagato smiles as the man stepped up and stood beside him. Tell me, why am I dreaming of Konoha and not AIM? Naruto smirks before glancing at him. Who said you were dreaming? The god of AIM snapped his head to his right, staring wide-eyed at him. Naruto, what are you talking about? The blonde grinned, not being able to help himself. I used a forbidden jutsu that allows me to talk to the dead. Funny, because after I use it nothing happens, so I look at the forbidden scroll that we Hokages are allowed to add to and read from. I found another jutsu that allow me to contact anyone. Of course it took some tweaking on my part. I took up sealing as well, just like Jiraiya-sensei and my old man. Anyway, I presume you weren't dead. Found a jutsu to contact you and voila, here we are. Nagato looked at his cousin before smirking. That's quite impressive, Naruto. Naruto smiles at that. One does not just get complimented by a great shinobi like Nagato and brush it off, no matter your status. Thanks, Nagato. The two men stood in silence as they look at the peaceful village. I did it, Nagato. The blonde said, his voice laden with sorrow. I've finally achieved peace here in the elemental nations, just like what you wanted. Just like what Jiraiya-sensei wanted. Nagato eyes welled up. Naruto. How did you do it? The Hokage smiles sadly. I won't lie, it took a lot of bloodshed and it's a shaky peace as best, but the cages is trying their best. They don't want another Akatsuki. The redhead looked to his cousin. I've killed again, Naruto. I am lost in a world I don't belong in. I have two daughters who I didn't see for years because I was imprisoned. There is 3 different factions. My daughter is a member of one and I don't know what to do. I've lost Kana, my love, and Nagato spoke of everything that happened since his arrival in this dimension. Finally truly having someone he can talk to, not crazy dreams but truly someone who will understand the turmoil he was currently going through. Naruto just sat quietly listening to his cousin and fellow Uzumaki spill his heart out to him. After the entire explanation, Naruto frowns. This was truly an awful punishment. Instead of getting his eternal peace, he was in another world going through the pain of living and still losing loved ones. Naruto looked to Nagato. Cousin. Nagato eyes blink in surprise. That were currently the first time Naruto ever said it out loud. Yes? Nagato focus on him, his Rinnegan eyes staring into Naruto blue orbs. Answer this. Are you Nagato or are you Pain? Nagato look at Naruto in surprise. I don't know. Naruto smiles at him. I think I know. I believe you are Nagato, student of Jiraiya-sensei, cousin of Naruto Uzumaki, Hokage of the Leaf Village, best friends of Yahiko and Konan, husband of Kana and father of 2 daughters, Kuroka and Chiron. The man that would do anything to protect his family and friends. The days of pain is over. Nagato continues to stare at the man before him in surprise. Naruto. Naruto grasped Nagato's shoulder and looked at him with a hardened gaze. The eyes of a veteran. The look of a man who had been struck by pain but overcame the destructive pull of it. You are not Pain. The man's tone was forceful. You are Uzumaki, Nagato. Pain is no longer needed. You want to protect your family? You want to achieve peace? You and I both know that it will cause bloodshed. Naruto gripped on him tightened. But don't do it as Pain, do it as Nagato. The redhead dropped to his knees. I can't. Naruto crouched beside him. Yes you can, Nagato. You've done it before. Only you can break those chains of hatred. Only you can break the first link in that world of hatred. You can end the cycle just like I did. You're an Uzumaki, so be one. Damn it. Stop the madness and do what you need to do. Pain wasn't created to take care of a family. He wasn't created to love. He wasn't created to bring about peace. The blonde Hokage shook his head, not breaking eye contact for even the slightest of seconds. He needed to get this through to Nagato at all cost right here and right now. Pain was created to bring about fear. He was created to destroy. He was created to instill pain. Pain cannot love. This is how I know you aren't pain. Not anymore, but Nagato Uzumaki, the man who helped me bring about my dreams, be that man again. Nagato, now who are you? Asia entered Pain-sama room to give him another session of healing. She had to give him several healing sessions due to whatever was happening to the man. Instead of a normal healing where his body was simply get better, she and the others noticed that she wasn't just healing him, but some of her energy were also being sapped by the man strangely. So to avoid anything potentially fatal, she would heal him until she felt tired and slept for the rest of the day and do it again the very next day. She placed her hands above his back and began the very process over again. After 30 minutes she realized she wasn't as tired as she was before. The blonde nun smiles before exiting the man room and lightly closing the door behind her. The god of aim eyes shot open and he sat up, breathing deeply. He clamped his jaws shut before shooting up out the bed. He continued to grab his stomach in pain as he struggled to walk over to the bathroom. With increasingly difficulty he opened the door. He felt a horrible burning sensation within his eyes and he looked in the mirror only to see a crimson trail of blood slowly creep down the corner of his eyes. He hunched over before puking into the sink. He breathed heavily as the pain began to slowly subside. I am Nagato Uzumaki. He looked back in the mirror and pain stared back at him before fading. His eyes glowed brightly before dimming to its normal dull color. The image of pain was no longer there. Now stood a red-headed long-haired man in his late 20s with dark violet hair. The piercings that he had placed within himself was no longer in sight and his body. Every single part of him was brimming with power. He thought back to what Jiraiya said at one point. You could be the second coming of the Sage of the Six Paths. Nagato continued to stare at the mirror. The Sage of the Six Paths, huh? He stepped away from the mirror and turned on the hot water, stepping into the shower, letting the steaming hot water cleanse him of grime and sweat that clung to him. God of Shinobi, he continued to let his sensei words swam through his thoughts. Now understanding his place here, the shinobi exited the shower and into his room, throwing on a pair of black slacks and a black fishnet shirt. He grabbed a comb and straightened his hair to the same style he had all them years ago. The man exited his room, his steps inaudible, the skill and practices of being a shinobi showing without him actively trying. He entered the living area and stared at the group assembled before him. He actively eyed each one as they talk and mingle amongst each other. Rainier sat to the side scowling at the entourage. Asia was happily talking to the boy Issei while Akano, the long purple-haired teen, teased the poor boy with her body. Kiba were grinning at the sight in amusement. Miltelt and Kalawarner sat beside each other quietly eyeing them in annoyance, probably not used to their activities, and the girl Rias were currently consoling his daughter, or at least trying to. His daughter was looking at her tray of sweats without touching one. She sighed before looking up and staring at him in surprise. What is it? Rias asked Kaneko, drawing everyone's attention to the Neko, who just continued to stare. They eventually followed her line of sight to see a red-headed man staring at them with the same eyes as pain. Nagato smiles softly before letting it slide into a sly smirk. Hey Chiron. He kneels down. Dad is back and here to stay. Kaneko sighed in content as she laid on her father bed staring up at the ceiling. He would let her use his bed whenever he were up and about, which is usually quite often. She smiles softly before turning, looking at the door of the room. She was quite surprised for a human her father didn't have to sleep often. Actually she were quite surprised at him. Strangely she noticed that he moved more fluidly, was quicker, the word she were looking for. Nagato were a fast man from the beginning, but now after whatever happened to him, he seemed younger. She sat up from the bed, unable to take a nap at time like this. Admittedly having a father wasn't that bad, not like how most teens at Kuo made it out to be. Probably because he is definitely a one of a kind. She slid off the bed and exited the room, looking around for the man that was currently occupying her thoughts. She entered the gathering area, seeing her friends still there talking amongst each other. She frowns lightly. That was definitely one thing she had to figure out. Will she return living with Rias or will she stay with her father? Nagato hadn't brought it up yet, most likely due to the fact that as of now they were still on the run for breaking her out of prison, and thankfully Nagato didn't tell them to get lost, though she were pretty sure he wouldn't, considering they were friends of her and in dire need. Kaneko head spun. Her father was a total unknown. First he shows up kicking their ass, though she would admit she probably rile him up a bit, then he do a 180 and save her and everyone else lives. The Neko tilt her head baffled at the man. Was all fathers this confusing? She shrugged before moving on. She didn't care though the man proved himself more than enough, and she had to admit impaling himself with the big-ass spears was cool after he dropped in all hero like hell. She noticed Rias' lingering looks on him when she thinks no one is watching. Nagato sure knows how to get people attention if isn't blowing up buildings or summoning a creature from Lucifer knows where. She sat down beside Rias, who smiles at the girl company Kaneko. Rias greeted before removing her reading glasses. I've talked to your father, Pain. Nagato. The young Neko corrected while she grabbed a small chocolate cube off the plate. Nagato. Ria's smile, noticing the faint hint of some actual emotion settling in her rook voice now, and he said we could stay here for a while, he even using his strange abilities to make us several rooms along with the fallen angels as well. Kaneko nods happily. At least now I don't have to worry about them getting caught, she thought before speaking up. How did you convince him? Rias shrugged. He didn't need convincing. He came to me and said, and I quote, you and your friends can stay here as long as you like. You did save my daughter after all. Rias sighed. I am actually thankful. At first I didn't know how to treat him, consider the whole school thing, but I think he's trying to make it up. Anyway, I was worried that if left to our own devices we would have gotten caught out there. Kaneko stood up. Any idea where he's at? Rias pointed to a small room over to the right. His study over there. Kaneko nods and walk over to the room. She gently knock on the door that was already open and poke her head inside. Nagato were situated at a desk with a dozen or so books. Most of them stood in piles while several were open. Dad. She tested the word, still not sure how she felt about using the word yet. The shinobi look up from the book and smiles. Come in, Chiron. He gesture her over. She look at the open books, a little bit of the cat curiosity kicking in. She can tell most of the books were on gods, while a few were about the three factions, the angels who led by Michael and the god of legend, the fallen angels and Azazel, and last but not least the devils who led by Sirzek. She wonder if it had information on Grigori and the Satans in it as well. She were quite astute and brilliant himself, just that many doesn't get to see it because she usually kept quiet, and from what she is seeing she probably get that from her father. Nagato noticed she were paying attention to the books. He were studying up on I am looking for several things to be exact. First, I am looking to make contact with this Ophis character who goes by the name as the Ouroboros dragon god. This dragon god is mentioned several times in several different tomes, yet nothing solid. Kaneko nods. Why do you need a dragon god? She asked, curious. The Rakuto Sennin frowns lightly. Not just any god, and if you're curious if I know about Issei. He smirks. I can sense the dragon within him. It has a similar feel to a Biju, just its energy isn't as toxic. Besides, I need the dragon god so I can access realms and dimensions that I normally wouldn't be able to. She nods before looking at her father. The man stare at his daughter. You know you get your curiosity from your mother, but you're more reserved like me. Kaneko smiles. This was the actual first time she heard talk of her mother. Kuroka made sure to avoid the subject entirely. Nagato stood looking at his daughter. Chiron, channel energy through your eyes, said girl. Nods minutely before doing as she were told. The god of shinobi watch his daughter fumble with activating her eyes. They flash briefly before staying active. I see, this is the first time you actually tried to make the Rinnegan appear. Yes, it usually appears when I am angry or really focus on something, she state truthfully. That's because you're unknowingly channeling your inner energy source, not your demonic energy but your chakra. Chakra. Also, Nagato, how come I have to turn mine on and off while yours stay on permanently? The redhead shinobi smiles. Well, chakra is a shinobi energy source, and to your second question, well, it's probably the byproduct of you being half Neko and human. And Chiron, I can tell you now, you're going to have a very long life. She blinked in confusion. Huh? She asked, bringing a smile to his face. Well, as in Uzumaki we have extended lives, age slower, immense chakra reserves. I had the chakra to move several bodies at once and spam powerful jutsu. You're Neko and now a devil. Combine with that, you can become even stronger than me one day. He kneeled down to her level. Chiron, I can tell you this with 100% certainty. We Uzumaki are destined to do great things no matter where we may be or how low we have started from. It's the destiny of our clan. Nagato stood and messy his daughter hair. Now come, it's something I wish to share with you and your friends. She nodded and walked beside him into the living area. She sat beside Rias and listened patiently as the man stood before them. Nagato took in a deep breath before making eye contact with his daughter. I am turning myself in. What? Rainier, who chose that time to walk in, yelled and marched over to him. Pain, what the hell? It's Nagato. Kaneko and Nagato said at the same time. Father and daughter made eye contact and smirk, and Rainier, please do lower your tone. He said it softly, yet it held a certain edge. He may not be Pain, but he will still be respected. Rainier sighed before taking in a deep breath before leaning a tad bit closer to him than necessary. Nagato, you agreed to play the god of legend. The shinobi raised a brow before speaking up. He needed to end this now. Rainier, I am not God. I do not rule over the angels. He discreetly glanced at Asia, seeing the girl mouth widen in surprise. I am the Rakuto Sennin. He stated out loud so that everyone can hear him. I do not know how you know of my eyes and why you group them with this supposed god of your angel faction, but make no mistake, I will have nothing to do with him. He left Rainier stunned and surprise. Nagato turned. Rias, keep an eye on my daughter. The man vanished in a swirl of leaves. Nagato stood in a clearing staring up at the night sky. The moon was a bright white of light that lit the area. How did your sister take it? The elder of the siblings smiles sadly. Chiron didn't take it too well. She's in turmoil, to be honest. She knows it's the right thing to do, except she doesn't want to lose you. The god of shinobi nods. And you, Kuroka? The girl stepped up beside him, smiling. Me, I know you have something planned, Dad. Really turning yourself in? She laughs. You wouldn't walk away that easily from our lives. The man smirks. You know me too well, Kuroka. Nagato stayed silent before looking at his daughter. Kuroka, I know you have allegiances to someone else. That's alright, because I know you won't betray me. I need help with a plan, and I know only you'll be able to do it. Kuroka turned to him. I have an ability where I can read people's minds by touching their souls, but this time I won't be reading yours. I will be implanting something I seen into you, along with knowledge of a jutsu that is very dangerous. He sighed and his eyes began glowing bright as he pressed his finger against her forehead. Kuroka eyes widen at the images. I know you're very playful, Kuroka. You always been that way since you were little, but I also know it's a certain intelligence within you and you have full access to your Neko abilities, something that Kaneko doesn't yet. I need you to learn those techniques. Everything depends on you. She gripped his sleeve. But Dad, what if I can't? He smiled at her gently. You can, my dear. He reassured her. Only you have the power to do it. Learn it quick, dear. He walks always smiling. Kuroka eyes widened before she immediately starting remembering the knowledge of the jutsu. Several days later he stood in front of his daughter Kaneko and kneeled down in front of her. Chiron, I am sorry, but I can't have you and your friends on the run forever. It'd best if we end this quick before it gets out of hand. I lived a life of an outlaw and I don't want that for you, Chiron, and I am sure your mother wouldn't either. Kaneko hugs him and he returned the hug before kissing her on the cheek softly. Grow strong, my kitten. Remember, Uzumaki's always rise to greatness. He stood up and made eye contact. Rias. The shinobi placed his hand out. The girl looked at it before gently grabbing his hand, shaking it. Thank you for what you're doing, Nagato. He nods before letting go. Take care of my daughter, Lady Gremory. The girl smiles sadly. I will, Nagato. He looked at the rest of her peerage. It was a pleasure, and this place will always be available to you. Asia, I want you to go with Rias at least until I see you again. The blonde nun nods, sniffling. Nagato focused ninja art. Transformation jutsu. He changed into his previous image unknowing to everyone else except him. Writ a small chakra preservation seal under his wrist to preserve the genjutsu. Take me in, Rias. The girl nods and a teleportation sigil glowed under both their feet. They stood in the middle of a crowded street. The bystanders all look at the man before scattering, some panicking though many just made a wide berth. He glanced back at her. You did tell your brother I was turning myself in, correct? Rias nodded. Yes, he's probably just being cautious. Speaking of which. She nods. In the distance where the man were currently walking to him, several devil's bodyguards with his wife at his heels. She let go of his wrist. The deal were to bring you in and all charges on us definitely Chiron would be dropped. My brother and I signed the terms and made multiple copies. Kaneko is free. Rias turned to the man before lowering her voice. Truly thank you. Many probably won't see it, but your presence has been a tremendous help, mostly to me and my peerage. I see things a lot differently now. I may be Searzek's sister, but even I can't let that go through my head. Kaneko is no longer depressed. Though this may make her go back to that stage, one will do everything in my power to make sure that doesn't happen. She smiles. And you even got Riser off my back. You will have my support when they release you from prison. She turned towards the direction her brother is coming from. During that time, Kuroka sat on a roof a mile away and watched as her father appear in the street. She sighed, not wanting to do this at all, but she won't let those bastards throw him in another cell or have the satisfaction of taking his life. She just won't do it. Shit. She mumbles as Searzek Lucifer appear. I have to hurry. She mumbles. She remembered the technique that her father seen with perfect clarity. It wasn't the same as the original and she added her own touch to it, but it was enough. It has to be enough. She channeled chakra through her feet and walk over the edge. Still look at her father, though she stood on the side of the building concentrating. Only you have the power to do it, dear. Kuroka gripped her wrist and began channeling her chakra through her fist. The energy cackled before sparkling as it gave off a pure white hue. I need more. She channeled even more, making the lightning scream. That's it. She shot forth, running as fast as her feet will take her before she began channeling her senjutsu throughout her body, raising her capabilities and speed through the max. This is for Dad. A few strands of her black hair became a red and her rinnegan gave off a soft light as she neared the meeting. She remembered every moment she had with the man up until he was taken away from her. I love you, Dad, and don't worry, I won't fail. She neared the group and within a few seconds she could see her father's eyes looking at her with approval. Rias were completely blown back by the shockwave of the speed of the attack. Rakery. Kuroka fist went through Nagato chest and out the other side. Kuroka continued to stare, her eyes glowing softly before dimming. Time seemed to slow down as Nagato fell slowly before hitting the earth. A tear fell from her as she looked at her bloodstained fist. She shook her head before running the way she came. Rias continued to stare at the man, body blood trailed down his lips. She ran over and lifted him up, barely hearing his last words. Tell Chiron, I am sorry. Kuroka stared at her hands. What have I done? Only you can do it, dear. Why should I join this organization of yours? The woman's voice asked in a polite manner, but the skeptical look on her face said it all. The younger woman nods. I understand your unwillingness, but this will be the best decision you will ever make for your people, for your daughter. She placed down her cup after taking a sip of her tea. Kuroka, I am sorry, but I find that hard to believe, the blonde woman stated truthfully. The leader of Akatsuki smiles. The three factions is in turmoil right now, Yusaka, between their political backstabbing and their enemies within and outside their territories. I honestly do not believe the biblical figures will continue to exist. Yusaka nods. I understand, but what does that have to do with me? She asks curiously. Well, one thing is, once the three factions is destroyed, who do you think they will turn to next? The next strongest faction, and that is yours, Yusaka. Your Yukai will be in danger. They are dangerous, Yusaka. Zeus and his Olympians, Ra and his subjects, Odin and his children, and let's not forget the four horsemen. That is merely a fraction of the three factions' enemies. While they squabble and fight amongst each other, these hidden factions merely lay in wait, gaining power each second, Kuroka informed her. The woman pondered her words. What make your organization and different from these other factions? Kuroka kept silent before looking down at her tea. My father has created this organization so he could bring peace to the world. Yusaka, you ask what makes Akatsuki different? I'll tell you. Kuroka locked eyes with the woman. Akatsuki is a place where everyone can live in amongst each other in peace, be it devil, angel, or even a fallen. I don't care, even if it's a wandering dog, they will find a home here with us because we do not discriminate from your background or former allegiances. We don't care, we just want to live happily outside the troubles of three factions and their enemies. Akatsuki can be our own little heaven out of heaven. The blonde woman smiles. Outer heaven, huh? And what if someone decides to break this heaven's peace? Kuroka stared at her and her eyes began to dimly glow. Then I will bring forth the entire might of the Akatsuki down upon our enemies. We are an organization with no allegiances except to our own. If one of us is in danger, then we will act without thought to make sure they are safe. If one of us is in need of funds, then we will simply help them. My father and I are trying to do something that no one has ever done before, and that is simply have peace, no war, no small skirmishes, no nothing that could place innocence in danger, not anymore. I want to bring that dream to light, but I am no fool. I know that it may cause blood to be spilt. I may have to do things that will hurt people for it, but if I have to, I will, because peace is worth fighting for. The blonde hair woman looks at Kuroka with interest. Si vis pacem, parabellum. Kuroka stood. If you want peace, prepare for war. She grabbed the black cloak and pulled it on. I will let you think on and converse with your council or whatever you need to do. The elder siblings of the Uzumaki left the woman's office and glanced at the man in a similar cloak. Did it go well? The two individuals continue a slow gait down the hall. Hopefully freed. My plan is progressing slower than I thought it would be, to honest. Any ideas on who may be candidates for Akatsuki? I still believe it would be best to contact Rainier and her lot. Maybe send your sister an invite as well? Kuroka hummed in thought. Rainier was in love with my father, or infatuated, should I say. But even after my father refused to play God for her, she still stood by him. Loyalty like that is hard to come by. Chiron, on the other hand, is a touchy matter. She's live with the devils most of her life and she won't be able to renounce their ways so easily. She stands loyal to Rias and she knows I killed father. Kuroka sighed before turning to the man. I am not even sure she would join even if my father asked her, but nevertheless I will extend her an invitation. You make contact with Rainier? I'll ask Chiron personally. After life, so you died twice? A man with onyx black hair asks with a blank expression. You sound like you had quite the adventure. It was worth it though, Uchiha. Nagato smiles as he sat with his friend and previous comrade in his past life. I didn't think it would be like this. Itachi chuckles. Yeah, no one does. I seen my mother a few days ago. Well, assuming it's days here. Nice that everyone has their own little areas. Keeps many from fighting, even though it would just be an eternal fight considering that we can't die again. To hear the great Uchiha Itachi chuckle, I must have truly been blessed by the Rakudo Sennin, Nagato mocked the younger man. Itachi stood up. You know, it's been quite some time since I had some fun, leader-sama. The man returned the jest. Nagato caught on and stood up as well. Well, I could totally use the practice as well. Been a while since I fought another S-class level shinobi. Steel purple met crimson red as they stare each other in a will of dominance. You have no fear meeting my gaze, Itachi stated, his voice held in underlining respect. Nagato nods. I have faith in my eyes. Now let's see who eyes is stronger, my friend. Itachi smirks as his hands shot from the cover of his sleeve several shuriken between his fingers as he let them sail through the air, only for Nagato to no longer be there and standing behind Itachi with a kunai to the man back. Check. An explosion engulfed the area, saturating the ground with flames. Nagato jumped from the flames, his cloak sleeves singed from the flames. Your reputation truly precedes you, Itachi. I step right into the radius of the clone for the great explosion technique. The two men stare at each other before grins split their lips. This is going to be fun. Nagato dashed forward and Itachi met him head on. The two shinobi met in the middle, executing their knowledge of taijutsu as two men fought for dominance. The moonlight shining down upon them, enlightening the area, making their moves even more spectacular. Nagato narrow dodged Itachi fist before dropping low, trying to sweep the man off his feet. Itachi stepped over it before getting caught with the second the sweep, and Nagato got on top of him, his fist heading towards Itachi face at high speed. The man blocked each strike with ease. Itachi kicked Nagato in the back with his knee, sending the redhead forward only for him to roll on top of him, switching places and trying to overwhelm the man with a flurry of punches. The Uzumaki caught the man punches with the flat of his palms. He caught the man fist and held it there, and the man did something he never seen before. Itachi entangled his fingers with his and began using the both of their hands to create Seal's fire style. Fireball jutsu. The man exhaled the fire attack and Nagato immediately began expelling chakra Shinra Tensai. Itachi were launched off him, but he continued his clan signature fire attack. Nagato planted his feet and placed out his palms as purplish glow enveloped him. The fireball continued to grow smaller as it neared him until it vanished into nothing. Itachi smirks. Your Preta path ability. Let's see if it can absorb this. The Uchiha Sharingan morph into a demon shuriken Amaterasu. The black flames spill forth like a tidal wave of death from his eyes. Let's not. Nagato chuckles. Shinra Tensai. He channeled more chakra and watched as the barrier repelled the waves of flames as they made contact with the ground. The two shinobi huff and puff, catching their breaths. I see why you were made leader of Akatsuki, Itachi complimented the man. Nagato ran forward and the two clash once again. Itachi blocked each of the Uzumaki strikes. Well, I understand why Deidara hated your eyes. Now it's a pain in the ass. Itachi chuckles before wrapping the man's arms in his and throwing him. Nagato flew through the air before righting himself and skidding through the dirt. Fire release. Great fire annihilation. Nagato expelled the tsunami of fire from his throat. Itachi's eyes narrow on the devastating fire attack, and he gathered the chakra needed. Susanoo. Nagato watched as the flames began to engulf the Uchiha before orange humanoid figure made out of pure chakra blocked the destructive technique. So that's Susanoo, pure chakra. Nagato stared at Itachi, who stood within the figure with a blank stare. Itachi released his technique and the two men walk over beside each other. Say, Itachi, want to trade jutsu? Nagato asked with a grin. The Uchiha smirks. I wouldn't mind learning that fire technique, and I am sure you got more up your sleeve. Sure, why not? The two men shook hands. Let's get to it. Living Kuroka walked casually through the streets. Her eyes glowed dimly and she vanished from where she stood just as the ground had exploded in an explosion of debris. She looked at her unexpected attacker Chiron. The younger Neko glared at her with fury-filled steel eyes. Chiron charged at Kuroka once more. She channeled chakra through her hands, jumping up and diving down at Kuroka like a wrecking ball, destroying the ground with a terrifying ease. Kuroka's eyes widened at the mere destruction her sister was dishing out with just her fist. What the hell, you were never this strong, Kuroka stated in surprise. Kaneko smirks before raising her fist, slamming it until the ground causing a fissure to shatter the ground. Kuroka jumped. Avoid the strike. Got you, Kaneko stated as she raised her hand. A little something I learned from Dad, heavenly attraction of all creation. The Kuroka felt her body jolt before she went flying towards Kaneko. Cock back her fist. I've been training ever since that day you betrayed Father Chiron. How could you? She released it and smashed into Kuroka gut, making the girl spit blood before she rocketed back through several buildings. Kuroka groaned, holding her stomach back. I didn't see this coming, she mumbled to herself. After a minute Kaneko walked through the broken wall. Why? Kaneko demanded to know. Kuroka sighed. Chiron did have the right to know because he wanted me to. Kaneko's eyes blinked in confusion, her Rinnegan receding. What? Father wanted me to kill him, she enlightened her younger sister. You're lying. Kuroka met Kaneko's eyes and the two held it the look for a moment. You're not. Why would he want that? Chiron dropped to the ground in confusion. Kuroka brushed the dirt off her father's cloak, happy that she didn't get any rips or tears on it so he wouldn't suffer at the hands of the devil's prisons, that and to put pain behind him. Think about it, no one but us knows what he looks like now, so he can come back and have a normal life with us. Kaneko looked at her sister. But he's dead, he can't come back. The elder Neko smiles. But he can. Kaneko, I know how to bring him back, he showed me how to do it before I killed him. How is that possible? Kaneko asked, even more confused. Kuroka walked forward and sat beside the girl. Our eyes are capable of great things, Kaneko. Kuroka stood and looked down at her sister. Join Akatsuki and be there for father when he comes back from the land of the dead. Help us create a land of peace for everyone. Kaneko stare at the hand. Land of peace? She asks. Thanks for watching.